I don't know about you, but I'm bang up for it. They're bang up for it. We might as well crack on then, haven't we? Come on! Yes, OK, well, loads on tonight. So it was a good week for real women.
The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex.
And it was a bad week for the militant trans community, but it's really nice to see they're taking it very well, given their reaction to past court rulings. It's all completely normal, not unhinged at all.
I'm getting upset. Can't lie. It's just not okay to do that. It's not okay to have the government say that about us, you know.
The unions have taken a day off from supporting workers' rights in Britain by going on strike and stopping people from getting to work in Britain, and a day off from supporting workers' rights in Britain by protesting about Gaza to organise a big trans protest through the capital city tomorrow. Yeah, but I can't help but wonder whether or not we're going to see a bit more stuff like this.
I was going to come here and be really fluffy and be really nice and say, yeah, be really lovely and queer and gay. No, if you see a turf, punch him in the f***ing face.
Oh, yeah, they're the good guys, excuse the pun. And already public bodies are finally reacting now, and they are changing their policies. So, British Transport Police has said that trans officers can no longer conduct intimate searches of women, which I think is a good thing, and hopefully this is just the beginning. So, women are women. Men can't be biological women. Let's start, I think, before we go to my wonderful panel, by hearing from a female member of our audience. I'm going to shufty my way over here. And I believe we've got Jill on the front row. Jill, thank you very much. So, what would you like to say about the big news of the week about the Supreme Court ruling then?
Hello there, panel. In the light of the Supreme Court's ruling that trans women are not legally women, do you think that the Labour Party owe women an apology? And is this a victory for common sense?
What do you think? Does everyone here think that the Labour Party should owe women an apology or not?
Yes!
Oh, Barry, what would you say to that?
Us blokes hate talking about a little thinning up top, and many of us settle with that balding look, but that wasn't for me, and that's why I went to Elite Hair, the world's leading hair loss clinic, and now I've had over 4,000 new hairs added to this barnet, and very soon I'm going to be rocking some brand new flowing locks, and you can too. So how does it work? Step 1, I sent the team a set of photos of my head. Step 2, I then spoke to one of the Elite Hair staff who looked through my photo submissions and worked out a treatment plan for me. Step 3, Elite Hair then organised accommodation and the treatment. I was at their state-of-the-art treatment centre in Istanbul, and their incredibly kind staff took me through the process, and before I knew it, I was in surgery. Elite Hair and their leading medical experts have specialised in pain-free treatments using the sleep deep method, and they really mean that. I felt incredibly relaxed the whole time, and I haven't felt any pain since. Check out Elite Hair using the link in the description. When you do, Elite Hair will provide you with a free personalised hair analysis. Then you'll join over 100,000 happy patients. Hit that link and start your hair growth journey like I did today.
Well, I have to say I'm rather surprised that you think it's the Labour Party that owe women an apology, given that the court ruling was about Scotland and the Gender Acts in Scotland as they affected Scotland. And I think it's really important that we remember here that there are what the Equalities Act 2010 did was it established protections against discrimination. And I thought that the ruling that was made, and I've read it very carefully, what the judges said about it, they were very specific in saying, look, people who have had gender reassignment are still protected under the Equalities Act. They cannot be discriminated against for having gender reassignment.
Do you think it's more that Keir Starmer couldn't say what a woman was for ages?
Well, he said that a woman could have a penis.
Yeah, look.
Biologically, it's not true.
Absolutely. And you know that, in fact, I think just after I was on your show some months ago, I've always been very clear on it. I was clear on it years ago when my mother first gave me The Female Eunuch by Jermaine Greer to read, and I realised that there were two distinct things. One was sex and the other was gender. But the important thing here is that people should be protected from discrimination.
But
the
Rosie
judges have found...
your former colleague, she wasn't protected, was she? She was hounded out of the Labour Party by other colleagues of yours. I think Rosie Duffield. She put her neck on the line to defend women's rights in single-sex spaces for women, and she was hounded out of her own party.
She wasn't, actually. And that was not why Rosie left the party. Rosie left the party for other reasons, and if you read her resume...
No, she's asked for an apology.
Sorry, she's a very close friend of mine. I know very well because I read very carefully
her today in the media
resignation
saying
speech.
She would like an apology, and if Keir Starmer did give her an apology, she would think maybe about coming back to the Labour Party, but she said she does not feel welcome
I would certainly welcome Rosie back. She's a very good colleague of mine in Parliament, and I would be delighted to see her come back into Parliament, but into the Labour Party. But that was not the reason that she left the Labour Party, and I think you need to read her resignation letter to find that out.
All right, okay. Let's just for the sake of clarity, let's just remind ourselves of what Keir Starmer said about women.
Woman can have a penis.
Nick, I don't think we can conduct this debate with,
Sorry, have I offended you in some way?
No, it's just...
OK, there we go. Now, I am at pains to stress that he later changed his mind somewhat and decided that most women are adult human females. But, Adam, you've been very vocal on this, haven't you? So
I've been vocal for 7 or 8 years on this, starting from, the sport, the unfairness of having biological men in women's sports. Dangerous, and it's ludicrous for me. Anyone that ever defending this, really needs to look in the mirror and ask themselves some questions. But I've got 2 daughters, more importantly, and the future for me was terrifying. Thinking of, the brainwashing that they're getting in schools and from corporations and from adverts and everything, that this is normal. No disrespect to trans people, they make their choice. This is not normal life. Women need rights. Trans people do not need to be targeted, but in my opinion, there is no way they should be in women's spaces. And I question the sanity of anyone that ever thought that was right. That, bearded men with wigs, in dresses and a bit of lipstick had the right to go into women's spaces. I think the world went mad, and I think this judgment this week has clarified and brought us back to common sense and normality.
And I think as well, one of the actual examples that you can give there of someone who I think essentially did just put a wig on and say they're a woman, it was someone who went into a women's prison. It was a male rapist who went into a women's prison. Now, the news today was that that's going to stop. That's going to stop. I think that's a welcome thing, isn't it, really? That shouldn't be the case. Christys, where are you at this? I mean, it was obviously a massive news story this week. We've got people who feel very, very strongly about it here. Do you think this is a victory for common sense in Britain?
I hate this debate because I think it's got so toxic. And I think that 2 things can be true at the same time. I believe people have gender dysphoria. I believe that exists. I believe they don't choose it. I believe it must be absolutely dreadful for them if they have that. And I think you can believe that and want those people to be treated with kindness and respect, yet you can also believe at the same time that the sex-based rights for women and others who want those respected should be respected. And I think that for something that seems to talk about non-binary so much, it's a very binary debate. I mean, people seem to think that if you say one, you're against the other. If you say the other, you're against it. So I think it is a victory for common sense, because I think it is clear that if you are someone who has male body parts, you shouldn't be competing in female sports in a female space. But that does not mean... But that doesn't mean that you don't also believe that trans people and gender dysphoria exists and they also deserve equality and rights.
But it's become a trend. It's also become a trend, Patrick, now. It's become trendy to be trans. People that were different at school when I was young, they'd dye their hair a different colour or they'd put black makeup on or whatever. Now the whole trend is to be trans and be part of a little gang, and that has led to normal men going into women's toilets for fetishes and things like that. It's not right.
Well, it has been, because people have been sent to prison for it. There's obviously been cases where people have used it to enact whatever kind of sick fantasy that they do have. But do you mind if I ask you a quick question here, which is, would you like to see now, definitively, public bodies like the NHS, or meaning that, you know, nurses, female nurses don't have to change with people who identify as being a woman? Would you like to see there being a bit more done off the back of this verdict as well, do you think?
Yes, I would. I think your point was very good about it shouldn't be such a binary debate. You can believe both things at the same time. Trans people have been with us for centuries. However, of late, normal men have been jumping on the bandwagon in order to compete in female sports. I cannot believe there are so many trans athletes, but I can believe that there are some mediocre athletes who are male and who decide that they'd like the opportunity to be the top, like the boxer who flattened that poor Italian woman. So, yes, I would like to see women's spaces and women's sports protected.
Sarah, how would you feel about that then? Is that
I agree with you there. You've made some really, really good points, and Christo as well. The problem we've got going forward from this, we've obviously got this ruling. We can now celebrate that we are women. We're allowed to publicly say that, and plain old common sense has eroded the woke insanity that has sort of taken over society for the last decade. The problem what we've got going forward with Labour is the Health Minister, Karen Smythe. Today she failed 4 times to clarify whether there will be single-sex spaces, whether it means whether a trans woman can use that space or not. So, you know, if they're still not able to clarify that,
the judges
I don't think we're any further forward, really, are we?
The judges actually have clarified that, and it was one of the protections that they talked about that women had under the 2010 Act. So the Equalities Act had a number of manifestations. One was that, in fact, there were exceptions to the Act, because normally the Act says you have to be treated the same, and then they said, as an exception, if there is changing of clothes and so on like that, then there must be separation. So actually we go back to that now, and that's absolutely right. But I wanted to reinforce what Christo had said, because what the judges said, and I'll just read it if I may, Patrick. The interpretation of the Equalities Act 2010 does not remove protection from trans people with or without gender recognition certificate. Trans people are protected from discrimination on the ground of gender reassignment. That doesn't mean that they have the rights that women have under the Equalities Act.
It's now on people to enforce certain things. And Adam, I'll come to you on this, because it's all very well and good talking about discrimination. Nobody wants to see anyone in any way, shape or form just gratuitously discriminated against. No one would want that. However, there were a lot of women, like J.K. Rowling, for example. I mean, there's a whole host of them, people who did not have J.K. Rowling's money and power and influence, who wanted to voice their concerns about this, who were threatened by a very, very aggressive mob of very hardcore...
Sharon Davis is one that I would like to mention. She's brilliant.
Nurses as well, 26 nurses in Darlington.
But let me just say as well, I mean, one case that really brought it up to me was Eddie Izzard, he's part of your party, Barry. A butch man changes his hair, dresses in women's clothes, and we've seen pictures allegedly on the internet of him using women's toilets. Now, where do you stand with that now? I mean, would the Labour Party call someone like Eddie Izzard out if they knew he was using women's toilets?
I think it's covered by the Act as well, though, isn't it? About whether they've still got male parts.
He's got full male parts.
Look, this is exactly what I've just talked about. Women are protected under the Act. As I said, it's an exception to the Act, because the Act says you have to have everything the same between men and women. But when it comes to changing spaces or toilets or things like that, you will notice, of course, that this is the only place I know that has got unisex toilets. But anyway, you know, talk about woke.
You've got women on one side of their own cubicles, men on another side of their own cubicles.
I use either. I didn't know that.
Same front door. No. But anyway,
same front door.
But the point that you made is absolutely right, Adam. If you are biologically male, you should not be using those spaces which are carved out as a protection under the Equalities Act for women.
Right.
OK, now there's a gentleman from Rower here who would like to make a point. We're going to have to be relatively snappy,
But it starts from the bottom in the education system. When you have the the Marxist person of the union, it indoctrinates children, and teachers wear hundreds of badges on their chest and indoctrinates children.
Can I ask how old you are, please?
19.
So you're 19, so presumably...
They indoctrinate children.
Right, okay.
I've seen it.
So if, again, please don't name any names here, name the school or anything like that.
Yeah.
But can you give me an example of stuff that you saw when you were at school?
They show books about trans things and stuff. It's just a disgrace. Children should be children. They shouldn't do that. It's unacceptable.
Just to echo that young gentleman's comments as well. Recently, a friend's son, who's only 9, he told me that in his school, in his primary school, the children are being spoken to by teachers and asked to explore their feelings, and how some little boys may want to be girls and some little girls may want to be boys. And so you do wonder what is being fed into
I hope there's a watershed moment here. Again, you know, and I don't mind saying this. I think we all agree here. No one wants to see people being persecuted simply for being the way that they are. Absolutely. At the same time, there's that question, which I think that gentleman made a very good point on there, which is this seed being planted by certain things in society, or are there large numbers of people who genuinely feel that way? Maybe both can be.
I think also as well, what used to be gender non-conformity, which was, you know, a boy who might want to wear a princess dress for a week, and you just go, well, there you go, fine, fair enough, have a biscuit. Yeah. Whereas now, I think teachers are actually kind of saying, you know, maybe saying, oh no, you must be something, and it's well intentioned, but actually just let them get on with it.
She wants to play football, so
it used to be a tomboy.
Life as a boy, you know,
just quickly, Patrick. All the left-wing unions, all the unions are coming out against this ruling. The law hasn't been changed; it's just been clarified. Okay.
All right. There's still a way to go. Right. Okay. Right. Lively start. Thank you very much, everybody.